Los Angeles, spring of 1988, a city on edge. The crack era is raging, neighborhood lines are tight, police helicopters stitch the night sky, and into this moment drops a movie. Colors, a street-level cop drama, filmed right in the neighborhoods living the crisis. Opening weekend brings long lines, heavy security, and a frenzy of headlines. The question that's echoed for decades: did Colors spark more violence? Or did it simply reflect the storm already breaking over LA? Today we go to the tapes, the newspapers, and the data to separate heat from light. Welcome to OC Street Files. I'm your host. For the next 15 minutes, we're going to walk through the timeline, the numbers, and the narratives that shaped how America understood LA gangs in the late 80s and early 90s. And yes, we'll confront the big claim head-on. Did a Hollywood movie push real-life violence? First, the baseline. By early 1988, before Colors hit theaters, LA was already experiencing a sharp rise in gang violence. Newspaper year-end tallies would soon show that in the city of Los Angeles, gang-related killings jumped from 205 in 1987 to 257 in 1988, about a 25% increase. That's not me speculating. That's straight out of the LA Times January 10th, 1989 reporting on LAPD figures. And it didn't stop there. The following year, 1989, Los Angeles County set a new record for gang-related killings, about 570 countywide, with the city of LA accounting for 303 of those. Another jump over 1988, again contemporaneous reporting. If you zoom out beyond a single year, medical and public health researchers documented the trend too. A peer-reviewed JAMA study that reviewed every gang-related homicide in LA County from 1979 to 1994 found that the proportion of all homicides deemed gang-related surged from roughly 18% in 1979 to 43% by the early 90s. Among black males ages 15 to 19, the gang homicide rate more than tripled between the early 80s and the 1989 to 1991 period. These were structural waves, not just one weekend spikes. Now Colors, directed by Dennis Hopper, starring Robert Duvall and Sean Penn, it portrayed LAPD gang unit work amid black and Latino gang conflicts, shot on real streets with technical advisors who knew the landscape. The film's content and the timing made it controversial before it even opened. Local reporting at the time chronicled heavy security at theaters and in some places, cancellations before release. Opening weekend saw a mix of calm and flashpoints. In Hollywood, LAPD detained suspected gang members after scuffles in the line for a late showing. The same weekend elsewhere in California, a man was killed and a teen wounded outside a Stockton theater where the film was playing. The incident led one cinema to pull the movie. These incidents fueled the narrative that Colors was causing violence at the door, but pull the camera back. Despite fears, the film also had a quiet, strong opening financially. Sold-out houses without widespread disorder. The box office reporting that week captured the complicated reality. Sensational headlines. Yes, but not universal chaos. Here's where we ground the debate. If a movie truly caused a surge in gang violence, you'd expect to see an abrupt structural break in the homicide trend uniquely tied to its release. But the actual data show an already rising curve that starts before April 1988 and continues to climb for several years, peaking countywide and citywide in the early 1990s. City homicide totals hit record levels in 1991 to 1992, years after the film, driven by dynamics much larger than a single cultural product. Public health and criminology literature from that era points to interacting drivers. The crack cocaine market and its territorial conflicts, cheap, high-lethality firearms saturating street disputes, demographic bulges of high-risk youth cohorts, and policing strategies that sometimes displaced violence rather than eliminating it. Classic work by USC's Malcolm Klein and colleagues linked the crack economy to more volatile, retaliatory patterns of gang violence during exactly this period. State-level crime reporting and California DOJ compilations show broader violent crime escalation across the late 80s, even outside specific theaters or film weekends, again suggesting the storm was systemic. Now that doesn't mean Colors was irrelevant. It mattered in how the public and policymakers perceived the crisis. The film arrived as LA elites were calling for a tougher stance on gangs. In 1988, LAPD launched Operation Hammer, a massive, high-visibility deployment and gang sweep strategy championed by Chief Daryl Gates. Supporters argued it suppressed homicides. Critics argued it inflamed tensions, swept up many nonviolent youth, and fed a cycle of antagonism. Even Gates himself described Hammer as a forceful bid to take back the streets. At the same time, California lawmakers had already passed the STEP Act, Street Terrorism Enforcement and Prevention, in 1988, ushering in gang sentence enhancements and new prosecutorial tools. Later legal scholarship and practitioner interviews would frame the late 80s as an explosion of gang violence that the law both responded to and, through broad gang definitions, sometimes amplified in the courts. And culture was shifting. Gangsta rap's national breakout tracked the same timeline. NWA's Straight Outta Compton also hit in 1988, embedding LA's street realities into America's headphones, while news cameras chased police crackdowns and sensational crimes in affluent areas. The ecosystem of media, policy, and market forces fed on itself. Here's the sober read. There's evidence of localized violence at or near some theaters showing colors. We cited Stockton, Hollywood, Detroit area incidents. Those are real, tragic, and documented. But sustained, citywide increases in gang killings are visible before and after the film, with peaks years later. Peer-reviewed epidemiology and criminology point to crack markets, guns, youth demographics, and enforcement regimes, not a single movie, as the main engines of the surge. If you're looking for a smoking gun, clear causal proof that colors heightened LA's gang murder rate, you won't find rigorous data that isolate the film from the wider storm. What you will find is a media moment that intensified attention, arguably shaped political will for aggressive tactics, and became a symbol of the era. That symbolic power is huge, but it's not the same as causation. By the mid-1990s, gang homicide rates began to fall from their early 90s highs. Multiple factors are credited: shifting drug markets, community interventions, police reforms, improved trauma care, demographic changes, and long arcs of prevention. The count stepped down through the late 90s and 2000s, with periodic reversals during national spikes, including the pandemic-era surge and partial decline since then. It's a reminder: violence is a system outcome, and systems change slowly. Colors is part of the historical record, a film that turned a camera toward neighborhoods already engulfed in conflict. It drew crowds, drew police, and drew fire. But the numbers tell us the rise in gang violence was a tide coming in long before the projector rolled. And it didn't recede just because the credits did. This has been OC Street Files. If you found value in the receipts, drop a comment with what era you want us to unpack next, and check the description for every source we cited. Stay safe, stay smart, and I'll see you on the next one.